You're listening to Served Up, a podcast that features inspiring beverage professionals and topic experts that share their passions through meaningful conversations. I'm your host, Bridget Albert, also known as the Market Fresh Mixologist, an industry mentor with decades of experience. Grab a cocktail and sit back. Let's learn how we can make a positive impact in our industry. Hey y'all, it's Bridget here. I am so excited to introduce to you Jessica Taylor. She is a program director in talent development at Southern Glazer's Wine and Spirits. She kicks off this conversation by sharing her inspiring journey from being a single mom in hospitality to overcoming challenges, embracing growth, and creating a beautiful, fulfilling life and career. Her story set an energizing tone centered on resilience, possibility, and what's achievable with determination and heart. So sit back, relax, grab yourself your favorite cocktail, and enjoy the show. Jess, welcome to Served Up. I'm really happy to have you on the show today.
Thank you so much for having me. I have been listening to you for a very long time on lots and lots of platforms, and I am super excited to be here with you today.
Well, thank you for that. I would love for our listeners to get to know Jess. So can you tell our listeners, where do you come from? Where are you at today? And what really brought you into hospitality?
Sure. Well, I started in hospitality many, many years ago. I've stopped counting after 25, but lots of years ago. And I worked in a couple of chain bars and restaurants way back in the day when they used to have dine-in service. And gosh, I was probably like 16 or 17 years old. And the patrons would come up to the window and watch people making their pizzas. And I was a server there and started to get familiar with hospitality in general. And we were a location that also served alcohol. So that was unique and interesting for the time. And then I also worked for a chain steakhouse way back in the day. I think they're all gone now. I don't think there are any left. But it was one of those places that threw like the peanut shells on the floor, and the servers would all get together when a particular song would come on, and you'd stand around the dining room together and sing the song. And, people may laugh at that these days, but it was really, really popular at the time. And one of the cool things that it did was it helped to introduce me to what community was. And, I had a very pleasant experience throughout school, and I had friends in the neighborhood and friends at school and things, but experiencing the community inside of hospitality was something very new to me. And it was so exciting because there were people from all different backgrounds, different education, different age groups, different political views, different upbringing. But everyone came together in those places I worked. Everyone came together as a community, and everyone took care of each other. And I fell in love. I had dreams of doing something else at the time. I thought that my path was to go on and major in pre-law and go on to law school.
Wow.
I know.
Hang on a minute. We need to pause right there. That's amazing. You're a smarty pants. I can't even imagine pursuing something like that.
Well, thanks.
Incredible.
I thought that that's what I was meant to do. And life just had a very different plan. Like I said, I really fell in love with hospitality. And on the surface, I thought what a lot of people think. It's that, this is just a means to make a paycheck and to pay some bills. And I very quickly found that it was something much, much more than that. And it was more than just the community. I really thrived off of serving others. And I know for someone who has not been in hospitality, or maybe that's not their calling, it's hard to wrap your head around that. But I know for a fact that everyone in hospitality knows exactly what I'm talking about. I got such pleasure and such joy out of taking care of others. And that is really what has kind of shaped my entire life. So I became a mother at a very, very young age. I had my first daughter when I was 18 years old. And so part of my being in hospitality was very much the obvious. It was the need. I needed money. I needed to be able to support a family at a really young age. But as I grew up in hospitality and I grew in my roles that I was in various bars and restaurants, it really just solidified that I was home and that's where I belonged. And it was what I was meant to do all along, is serving others and being part of that community, and really so many opportunities for different roles that exist within hospitality. I have never been held back in my journey throughout being in hospitality. I've had lots of different roles, right? I've worked in on-premise chain accounts. I worked in small craft cocktail bars. I worked in massive hotels. And I, for a period of time, even went over and worked for a supplier through a marketing agency. And I've spent the last 10 years working for a distributor at Southern Glazer's Wine and Spirits. So I've had tons of roles, but I've been able to grow my entire career in hospitality. And like I said, I've never felt held back. I've always felt like there's something there to help me grow and to find that next step and to serve others around me and still be very fulfilled myself.
Jess, was there a moment when you knew hospitality was really more than just a job?
Yeah, I think I started to see the signs way back when I worked at that steakhouse where we were throwing peanut shells on the floor. And that was, gosh, probably like in 97. So I'm really dating myself here. But I don't think I understood it quite then. Like in hindsight, I see that little twinkle. I see this event. I see that happening. Yep, those were the kind of the sparks. But I think when I really understood it, when I started to wrap my head around it, was in 2012 when I joined the United States Bartenders Guild. And I had really started getting very interested in cocktail history, cocktail culture. I think even at that point, I might have even entered a couple of cocktail competitions. And I very much loved everybody I worked with, and we had that great sense of community. But I really started to see that it was something more when I joined the USBG. And I found people that had even more passion than what I was experiencing in the places that I worked at the time. And later in that same year, I joined a little program called the Academy of Spirits and Fine Service, which I know you are extremely familiar with as you ran the one in Chicago.
Yes, I am.
For many, many, many years. And a dear friend, mutual friend of ours, Josh Mason, started that program in Indiana. And I lived in Indiana at the time. And so I was part of the inaugural class of the Academy of Spirits and Fine Service. I was valedictorian of my class. And Bridget, let me tell you, everyone in that class, like, we were in it. This is our career. This is the real deal. Like, we're going for certifications. These are some of the smartest people I have ever met in my life. Were part of that inaugural class. And I think that's when it really set in for me that, like, there's something more to this. So it was, like I said, it was between the joining the United States Bartenders Guild and joining that inaugural class of Academy of Spirits. It was just something magical. And that really is what catapulted my career.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, I always say, besides Served Up here, the Served Up the podcast, the Academy of Spirits and Fine Service was the highlight of my entire career.
Same.
I don't think we had much of in fact, I don't remember anybody really dropping out of it, right?
Yeah.
In the Chicagoland area. And then when I helped put together and oversee the Minneapolis and
back with our pal Jeff Rogers, right?
Yeah,
and Joe Daly in Louisville.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. And, it did have such a beautiful impact. And it was a place to build community, right? Which I think is super important. Do you have anybody that you want to give a shout out to that maybe has influenced your most early stages in your career?
Oh my gosh. There are a lot. Josh Mason is definitely high up on that list. And while it wasn't at the earliest stage of my career, it was at a very pivotal stage in my career. And so Josh Mason for sure, as well as a couple of folks from the USBG, Aaron Gregory Smith, for sure somebody that really has shaped so much of who I am. And although he is no longer part of the staff of the organization, at my peak time during leadership with that organization, he was always the executive director. And Aaron is so special because he just has a way of, for me anyway, of challenging everything I believe to be true. And it's wonderful because he does it in a very caring way. It's not just to be, in opposition.
Yes,
but he always made me,
100%.
he always made me think differently and just think about, even if I didn't agree with him at the end of whatever it was we were debating, he helped me to see a different point of view. And that's something that really, I think, helped me become more successful just in life, let alone my career. And then, of course, Kyle McHugh. I would be remiss if I did not mention Kyle. I don't even remember exactly when I met Kyle, but I know that it was through the United States Bartenders Guild. And Kyle has just, for some reason, always been a cheerleader of mine and helped me to find additional opportunities. And he's always been there to give advice and act as a mentor. And I 100%, no doubt in my mind, he is a huge reason why I have experienced so much of the success in my career as I have.
Yeah, Kyle's a very special human. So for those of you that are not familiar with Kyle McHugh, you can check out his Served Up episode. He's also the producer of Served Up and one of my lifelong best friends. And what I love to say about Kyle is that if you don't know something, just ask Kyle. And he has the patience of a saint. And I can attest to that because I'm the biggest pain in the ass when it comes to technology and all kinds of things. I will have meltdowns when it's like a whole thing. Like I get so nervous around computers and all these things. And he has so much patience. But even beyond that, in my, in personally, right? He's somebody that will always step in and step up. So I love that.
Yeah, he really is remarkable. And just the way that I've watched Kyle's roles in the industry progress over the years. And he always just has this very calm and caring demeanor. And, even through some troubling times in the industry, he's always been that voice of reason and just something I really, really admire in another human being.
Yeah, me too. You've been in the industry for a long time, Jess. How have you overcome self-doubt or setbacks along your journey in hospitality?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's tough. And I definitely still experience those things like anyone else all of the time. But I think it's something important because it kind of helps prepare you for whatever is next. And what I mean by that is, I feel like we go through these kind of phases as humans, whether it's in your career or in, your personal life, but you experience this time when you don't know a whole lot. So you're working to gain that knowledge. And then you get to this point where you feel, man, I'm really the expert. I know what I'm doing. I'm really confident. And then you learn there's a whole nother part of whatever it is you were learning that you didn't even know about. And then you fall into this weird, almost imposter syndrome where you're like, oh crap, like I didn't even know this whole thing was going on over here. I'm not sure I'm worthy of being here. Like I kind of doubt myself because, wow, what a jackass am I to think that I knew it all, last week. And now maybe I actually don't know anything. And then that's when the beauty happens because you realize everyone has gone through that. And especially in the hospitality industry, we're just all here to build each other up. And of course, serve whatever it is that we're serving, the community we're serving. And you gain more skills and you build your competencies and you build your relationships. And then you get there. And the beautiful part about all of that is, and that self-doubt is that you realize we're never going to know everything. We're always learning. We're always students. And that's okay. That's where the power is knowing that you don't know every single answer. You're not always going to get it right. And that is okay. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. Can you tell our listeners what you do today professionally?
Sure. My mom likes to ask that question a lot because when people ask her what her kids do, she's like, I'm not really sure what
Oh
my
my God,
oldest
can I
does.
just interrupt you just for one
Yeah,
second? Because
please.
for years, I had family members call me Chandler Bing from the show Friends because nobody knew what he
She's
did.
a
And
transponder.
yes, a transponsor. That's what I was. But no, continue, please.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Yeah, my mom and dad, who I just absolutely adore, they have a rough idea of what I do, but it's really hard for them to be able to explain it, as is for myself. So my title, what I do at Southern Glazers is I'm a national program manager, and my work focuses on brand and product education. So I work for a corporate and I am a work from home employee. I have been for the last 3.5 years now. And basically, I work as kind of a liaison between a few different departments and functions. So sometimes I work with our supplier partners. So, like, maybe Centauri or Pernod or Constellation or any of the hundreds of suppliers that we represent here at Southern Glazers. And I help to take brand education that they have developed or that they've had a third party develop, or maybe our company has developed. And I help to launch that on our learning management system and then find the right people within the company to take that education, whether it's
That's
usually
important.
we're talking like an e-learning course or something of that nature.
Yeah.
So
That's
that's
a
the
really big
bulk of
role.
what I do. Yeah. And then I also work a lot with our SG creative team. So we have an entire amazing, super talented department here called SG Creative. And they do lots and lots of very important, often behind the scenes work. But one small piece of what they do is they create e-learning. So sometimes suppliers don't have a third party that can create something, or they can't do it in house. And we are able to build and sell those to them. So I work with that department a lot. I also work with them occasionally as a subject matter expert. So maybe we're going to visit a distillery and really try to understand a brand. And so I'm there to ask the right questions, because I'm going to ask all those really nerdy questions about, like, okay, let's talk about the fermentation, like what temperature at, like, let's talk about your inoculation. And, they may or may not know to ask all of those questions. So sometimes I serve in that role. I work with our supplier development and marketing team. So those are kind of like liaisons between SGWS and suppliers. And I work with that team to connect on all those education pieces. And then the last kind of big part of my role is product education. So I lead this really incredible program that we built here called BASE, which stands for Beverage Alcohol Sales Education. And it's an internal facing program that's all about building up brand and product knowledge for anyone in the company, but we really specifically focus on our commercial sales teams. So I lead our spirits sessions for that, which we do on Wednesdays. We have a live Zoom session, and then we have follow-up materials. And we even have something that I just built for this year called market application checkpoints, where we actually ask our people to go out there, take whatever you just learned last week and apply it to your role. Do something, take the knowledge you learned and make it make sense. And then they get to turn in their reflection or their evidence, if you will, of whatever they did, and we get to review it. So we actually get to see real results of what people are out there learning, not just sending them through like a blind e-learning and then hoping that it made a difference.
Yeah. When you talk about your base program, is that the same program that you call Liquid Logic?
So Liquid Logic is another program. This is why no one knows what I do, because I have so many. I have to run through them all myself. Yes. So Liquid Logic is an incredible program, different from BASE that I just built. And it's actually in pilot phase right now with some of our commercial teams in Florida, with the hopes of rolling it out through the entire organization. But it's a hybrid 6-month training journey, and it's designed to elevate cocktail knowledge, sales strategy, again, with a focus on our commercial sales teams. If somebody wanted to take it and they weren't in commercial sales, we would certainly make that happen, but it's really designed for our commercial teams. And it's a blend of e-learnings, hands-on workshops, checkpoint tasks. So some of those kind of application pieces like I talked about before, and virtual sessions. And like I said, this is a 6-month journey. So it's a really big time investment for our people, but it's getting beyond the standard. What is vodka? What is gin? How do I sell it? Where does it go on the back bar? Where should it be on the menu? And what we've done is built this incredible toolkit that gets rolled out during these phases of these live workshops and such. We have things like a flavor matrix. We do cocktail family cards. We have a custom cocktail builder deck. We have cocktail pitch templates for them. We have pricing and cost calculators and menu engineering matrix, a font menu or a menu font rather guide, menu checklists, and menu or cocktail menu like evaluation sheets. So we're giving them all these tools in this toolkit so that they can go out there and be the subject matter experts and be the most educated when we're talking to our accounts, who, by the way, are also extremely educated, right? We have to level up and really be there to serve in whatever capacity our accounts need. Because the fact of the matter is, in this time, in this landscape of hospitality, there is a wide range of knowledge. We have a lot of folks who are just in their entry stage and they don't know a whole lot. Maybe they came in right during or after COVID and there's not a ton of education there. We also have folks who are incredibly knowledgeable and have been doing this for 30 years. And we better come in there with our top game if we're going to come pitch something. So that's really what Liquid Logic is to help us level up so that we can be the best partners to our accounts.
It really is amazing and so inspiring, to see where you were at in the beginning of your career to where you are today, really developing all these impactful and very thoughtful programs, right? Can you talk about how your definition of success has changed since the beginnings?
Well, I think in the beginning, to be very honest, it was just about success equaled how much money did I make that night in tips, right? I worked in tons of different places. I think one of the highlights of places I worked was when I worked in hotels and I opened their Indianapolis location as well as their Austin, Texas location, and tons of opportunity to make lots and lots of money there. And so I think success was really, oh my gosh, our teeny tiny bar did $35,000 in bar sales alone in one night. And I made a decent amount of money, as a portion of those sales. But I think that as I grew a little more, and especially once I started working for the marketing company where I served for a supplier and then coming over to Southern Glazers, there was definitely a period of time where I think title is what determined success in my own mind. Not to say that anyone else externally was saying that, but in my own mind, I had built that up that equals success. And I think for me, it was a lot of, when you're a bartender or a server, and I don't think that this happens quite as much these days as it used to, but I know it still happens. A lot of customers would say to you, well, what else do you do? You're like, no, this is it. This is my career. It's actually what I do.
Right.
And so you hear that a lot. And then so when I switched and I was working for a supplier and then working for a distributor, I thought, oh, okay, I made it. But then I felt, again, not that this was necessarily true, but it was my perceived feeling that, oh, well, they just view me as, oh, I'm the bartender that now works for the distributor. And so title became like the gauge of success. I had to have manager in my name, or, I really wanted to work towards director in my name, in my title. And not to say that those things aren't important, because it definitely plays a role. But now where I'm at in my career is I feel successful when I have other people, whether it's in the company or externally, just part of the industry, come back to me and either A, ask me for my thoughts, for my feedback, or for my advice, or to thank me for something that I may or may not have even known that I did. And, I remember having a conversation a few years ago with a pal of mine, Donnie Clutterbuck, who served on the national board of the United States Bartenders Guild with me for several years. And I don't remember the exact words, but he said to me one day something about a time that we had met several years before, and I made some kind of impact because of something that I said to him. And he's like, yeah, I really appreciated the way that you did that, and you made me want to do XYZ. And I didn't even know what he was talking about. And so it's moments like that for me now that I'm able to look back on that. That's what success is. It's knowing that I'm actually making an impact, which is interesting because it's almost full circle, right? Mm-hmm. So it's like back to the infancy of being in hospitality, when that's kind of what it was all about to begin with. It was serving someone else and that great feeling that you get.
Yeah, that's amazing. Can you talk a little bit about, because you've been in the industry for a long time, for a few decades now, can you talk about how you've seen hospitality evolve over the years? And I have a two-part question for you. What do you think the industry still gets wrong, and what do you think it's getting right?
Well, I've certainly seen it evolve by the product that it's selling, right? Food quality and the adventure of food and drink have definitely evolved over my time. And I think that the level of knowledge that hospitality workers have about those items, about the food and the drinks that they're selling, I think has certainly evolved and increased dramatically. I remember early on in my days, you just had to know that I'm going to date myself again by the prices I'm going to rattle off here, but you had to know that the 9-ounce sirloin with 2 sides and a salad was $9.99. Like, that's all you had to know. But then, later on, you had, maybe not at that particular restaurant, but at moving on to other places, you had to know, okay, well, there are 14 ingredients in this sauce, and you need to know them all, not only for, possible allergen reasons, but people want to know what is in that. How was that prepared? You need to know what sous vide is. You need to know what poaching is. You need to know all those things. So I think that the depth of knowledge that hospitality workers have and are expected to have has certainly evolved over time. And what was the second part of that?
What have you seen the industry get very wrong and get very right?
Mm-hmm. So I think something that I've seen, I don't even know if I would say this is necessarily getting it wrong, but it's just been part of the cycle, maybe, of the industry, is I can definitely see this, maybe it's a pendulum swing or a roller coaster of hospitality itself, of taking care of others. There was certainly a period of time when that became less important, and it was all of a sudden more important to either A, just get them in and get them out, or B, be so knowledgeable that you almost ended up looking down on the customer. And of course, I'm not saying that's everyone or every place, but there was definitely a period of time where that was happening a lot. And patrons were just made to feel kind of crappy, and it was not a really pleasant experience. But what I think is really lovely is I feel like I'm starting to see that come back, where we're seeing hospitality be the actual driver again. And it really just is about service and about taking care of others. And even if the knowledge isn't exactly where you might hope it would be, if I'm a bar owner and I have a bartender that doesn't know every single ingredient in a particular liqueur, that's okay, because as long as they're giving really phenomenal service and they're taking care of the guest, you can have a conversation and just be real humans, and people will show you grace if you show it to them first, right? So I feel like I'm really seeing that come back to the forefront, and I think that's exactly what it should be doing. I think hospitality should be the forefront of the hospitality industry.
Yeah, you know what? I agree with you. And something you mentioned at the beginning of this was that, you became a mom at a young age. And, I'm a mom as well. And it hasn't always been easy to be a mom in the beverage hospitality industry, especially early on. I'm just speaking for my own career, that it was nearly impossible. It's definitely gotten easier because my daughter is older and in college now. But can you talk to, what skills from motherhood really translated most powerfully into your career?
Yeah, it was definitely not easy being a young mom in hospitality. I spent, gosh, for at least 12, 13 years of my daughter's life working nights,
Mm-hmm.
um, working two jobs a lot of the times. And that was not easy on our relationship. But I think something that it forced me to do with my daughter is really make the time count that I did have with her. And, my oldest daughter is 25 now, and she's a first grade teacher, which I
Amazing.
just adore. And I think that she was able to see, even if she didn't know it at the time, see how hard I had to work to provide her with the things that she had, sending her to private school and trying to give her anything and everything opportunity wise so that she could be successful in life. And not that I wasn't proud of the things that I had accomplished, but like I mentioned, it was not easy. And, as parents, we want things to be a little bit easier for our kids, and we want them to become more successful than we are. That's, at least how I've always had it in my mind. So I think that making the time count with her is something that has really kind of translated across every aspect of my life. So, for example, I would work crazy, crazy hours, super late. I wouldn't get home till, a lot of times, depending on the place I was working, I wouldn't get home till 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. So by time she was getting up and getting ready for school, like I was just going to sleep finally. And but I would come home every night, and she'd obviously be fast asleep in her bed, and I'd go into her room, and I'd always give her a hug, and I'd whisper in her ear, and I'd tell her I love her. And I would always whisper something to give her good dreams. When she was real little, she always had bad dreams. And now I'm going to get emotional. So I used to tell her the leader to a story. So I would say something like, we're going to go on a hot air balloon and we're going to have a picnic. And my hope was that I was giving her good dreams. And I think that that's something that she has kind of carried in her life. I think it's something that it just helps you make more meaningful relationships,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's in business or it's in your personal life. It's never a bad thing to build a good relationship, right? So I think that's something that I've been able to take over into the work side of my life. And that when I build relationships with people, whether it's here at Southern Glazers or in the hospitality community or in another community, I really take that to heart. And I make my time with each of those people really count because I know that their time is very valuable.
That's really good advice, especially for our mamas that are listening, because I know early on in hospitality, it was nearly impossible. I can tell you, I work for Southern Glazers. They did not even have a maternity leave at that time. No policies
Yeah.
were in place. That's how long I've been here, forever, right? But now they do. They've got great, great support. But, back in the day, things were a lot different. So thank you for sharing that, for sure.
Yeah.
Can you
Yeah.
talk about what's next for you, Jess?
Oh gosh, Bridget. Well, your guess is as good as mine. I have some ideas. I've had maybe not quite as pronounced as your career here at Southern Glazers, because I know that you have created almost every single, if not every single role that you have held at this company. I've had, I think I've had a similar path, although a lot of the roles I've been in were very defined roles. They weren't obvious roles, I think, for me. So, whether it was something like for a period of time, I was a digital business operations manager. And for those that knew me closely, they were like, what are you doing? And I was like, I really need to get to know proof. It's a very important part of our business model at Southern Glazers. I need to know it. So I've taken this kind of interesting path so that I can become really, really well rounded, because I want to be in a place where I am looked at as the expert, and maybe I can call a few more shots in whatever the next thing is. But to kind of sum that point up, I think that the type of work that I do right now, brand and product education, is really that's my specialty, and it's what I love, and it's what I am by far the most passionate about. Whether that's educating externally to hospitality professionals or it's internally to our amazing team here at Southern Glazers, both are incredibly fulfilling and different. But I really want to stay in that space and that type of work. So one day I'm sure my title will change, as we tend to do around here. But I think that this type of work is where I'm going to stay until I retire. Anything can happen, and I am definitely one that takes on all kinds of opportunities if it presents itself and if I feel like it's a good move. So that could change. You could come back and ask me in a year, and who knows, I might be doing something totally different. But I'm really so in love with the type of work that I'm doing right now. And I'm excited that I'm still able to grow as an individual and a professional through our company, and through some other organizations like the Association for Talent Development, the International Coaching Federation. I'm able to kind of feed that need for myself, and I'm still able to grow in this role. So I'm not sure exactly, but something around what I'm doing probably.
I think you're just going to keep growing and doing incredible things like you always do. I mean, you have just such a great track record for that. Something that I don't believe in is work-life balance. I just think it's a bunch of shit. But what I do believe is something very healthy is to have hobbies outside of what you do for your job.
Yeah.
Jess, do you have any hobbies that you can share?
Yeah, I do. First, let me say, I agree. Work-life balance. I struggle with that, and I'm not sure how to make it exist because I am not built for that. So it's never my bosses or anyone at Southern Glazers pushing me. It is 100% on me. But I love what I do, and when I'm making an impact, it makes me happy. So I guess that is my balance. But yes, I absolutely have hobbies outside of work in this industry. I really love to go fishing, generally catch and release. I know. And this is new-ish. Like in the last, I say it's not new, I guess, anymore. In the last like 10 years. And so this past May, my husband, Dustin, and I picked up our lives in Indiana and moved over 800 miles away to North Carolina. And we live on the northeastern part of North Carolina in a teeny tiny, itty bitty, unincorporated community called New Hope. So tiny, in fact, that if you type in New Hope on like iMaps or Google Maps, it takes you to an actual city called New Hope that's like 700 miles away from me. And we live right on the water. So every single day, I don't do it every day, but I have the opportunity every single day to take a quick breather and walk outside on my dock and just cast a line. And like I said, I'm mostly catch and release, although once in a great while, my husband and I will go out and actively look for some catfish or some perch or something like that. But it's so relaxing and peaceful to me. And I never would have thought that it'd be something that I love. But my husband loves it. And I, wanted to find something to love with him. And I really just learned to love it. It's really great to clear my mind and kind of just be one with the water. And then the other thing that I really love doing is kayaking. So we have a few kayaks.
Okay. I love both of these things, but I really freaking love kayaking.
Oh my gosh. It's the most incredible. I love kayaking so very, very, very much. I just started doing it a few years ago. And so when we moved to North Carolina, I was like, we have to get kayaks. So we have lots of kayaks here. That way, when the kids come home or friends come visit, there's plenty of kayaks for people to come and go kayaking with us. And the part that we live on the water is really cool because if you go off of our dock, if you hang a left, then you end up going up this small river that's actually at this point, it's like a creek. And it goes way back into this like jungle looking, like very quiet, but like serene, cool, teeny tiny, like very shallow waters. It's probably like at most, it's like 5 feet deep in that whole area. Or if you hang a right, you can go out into the bigger water and you'll be in a sound. And a sound is part saltwater, part freshwater. And it gets really rough. So you got to be careful what time of day you go out there. But I love it because you can like have the best of both worlds. Like if I just want a relaxing kayak trip and I just want to like, burn a small amount of energy and just kind of enjoy nature and see what cool critters I find, I'll hang a left. If I want a real workout and I want to fight for my life a little bit, then I can hang a right and go into the big water. And it's so cool because it just matches whatever mood I'm in. And, my husband and I got to spend lots of time out in the kayaks over the summer. And like we even saw dolphins come up right in our water, like right by the kayaks. Like it fills everything good in my life and it just makes me happy.
Yeah, it's amazing. There's nothing beats being out with nature.
Yeah.
Nothing. I grew
Totally
up fishing.
agree.
I still fish all the time. Not this time of year where I live.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yes, I agree with you. I do want to ask you one last question, and that is, Jess, if you could go back and tell your younger self one thing, what would that be?
Oh man. I think I would tell myself, Jess, you'll get there when you're supposed to get there. I've spent so much of my life trying to plan everything and, kind of like mise en place my life, right? Like have a thing for every place and a place for everything. And that is good to an extent, but sometimes things just need to happen when they're supposed to happen. I was just having a conversation with someone recently about getting passed over for a promotion, and not myself, but for the other person. And I have been there and everyone has been there. Sometimes, maybe you ask for feedback and it's not even super clear when you get the feedback. But I think the thing to take away is it's going to happen when it's supposed to happen. And I truly, truly believe that things will happen for a reason. Maybe that thing that you're trying to do right now, maybe there's something else you don't know about. Maybe there's another piece to the puzzle that you don't quite see yet that means you're not supposed to be doing that. Maybe your work isn't done doing whatever it is that you're doing today. And the best thing that you can do is be the best version of whatever that is for that situation. And when the time is right, the other thing is going to come along. Like I honestly could not believe more in that by looking back at my life. Sometimes things that I just thought at the time, man, this is wrong. Like I'm supposed to be doing this. Like it didn't work out. And then the thing that came along next was even bigger and even better. So it'll happen when it's supposed to happen.
Well, thank you so much for being on Served Up and for sharing so much wisdom today. I do hope that you come back on Served Up and give us an update to what you are up to, what you're doing, and to drop just your brilliance and just your inspirational nuggets. It's been such a lovely time with you, and I hope to see you sometime soon as well. It's been way too long. And with that, I want to wish you some great health and a lot of peace. Cheers to you, Jess.
Oh, Bridget, thank you so much. It's really been such a pleasure chatting with you today.
Thanks for listening. Served Up is brought to you by Southern Glazer's Wine and Spirits. Produced by Zunu.online. Music by We Killed the Lion can be found on Spotify. Make sure to subscribe to be notified of our future Served Up episodes. Cheers.